Hey guys, I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. I hope that you guys have been enjoying my videos, learning from them, growing from them. That's my ardent desire with all of these. In this video, I wanted to speak to you guys about how INFJs have this sense of floating out of their bodies most of the days, most of the weeks, most of their lives. We spend a lot of our time, a lot of our mind time, our mental space, our body space, not in our bodies, but out there in the ether. Now, it works really well for us because if you're an imaginative sort, or if you're a writer, or if you are someone who uses their creativity, spending your time out there in the ether in another dimension, or being creative with the way you imagine your life to be, or the world that you live in, is a great thing. That's the reason I think INFJs can be really good writers, because we have such a crazy imagination. I can imagine a billion scenarios right now, sitting here, standing here in front of you, without even putting any effort into it, because I spend so much of my time in my head rather than in my body. Now, there are obviously positives to this, but I'm going to be speaking to the negatives in this video and how we can actually bring ourselves back to our bodies, because it's extremely important that as a human being in this world, we spend a lot more time in our bodies than in our minds. We're already really used to spending a lot of time in our heads, not only as INFJs, but as human beings in general. We spend a lot of time thinking, imagining, analyzing, pontificating, just in our heads here. We forget that we have this physical body, this physical form that we need to take care of, that we need to spend time in as well. That is why we have a general sense of ungrounding in this world. Most human beings, I would say 90 to 95% of the people on this planet, have a hard time or have an issue with grounding. Now, of course, this is not only because we are spending a lot of time in our heads, so we're spending a lot of time doing mental tasks like computer work, watching TV, on our phones, and so we spend a lot of time in our heads because of that, but also because we have a sense of ungrounding, because we've lost our nature. We've lost our mother nature connection. We spend a lot of time in congested cities, in concrete jungles, in cities without a lot of nature in it, a lot of greenery in it. We spend very little time in forestry, or in jungles, or in areas where there's a lot of nature around, right? So because of that, we have a general sense of ungrounding. Most people will tell you that they feel better when they go into the forest for a walk. There is this term called Shinjuku, I think, Shinjuku or Shinruku, where it's called forest bathing, and it's a Japanese term where people actually go into the forest to bathe themselves with the beautiful chemicals that trees emit that help us feel better about ourselves, and also just to feel grounded. That's why people tell you, gurus tell you, to walk bare feet in nature, because that really connects you to Mother Nature, to Mother Earth, to the magnetic forces around the earth, to the grounding sense, and you can really feel yourself connected to the world and feel yourself connected to your bodies by doing that. Now, because we've lost all of that stuff, no one ever walks barefoot anymore, really, if you think about it, unless they're a hippie in Goa, India, or something like that. We usually wear leather shoes, or we wear plastic shoes, or some kind of synthetic shoe that disconnects us from the earth. And also, we spend time in cities. I love cities, I'm not saying anything about them, but also that creates a sense of ungrounding. We're not connected to earth anymore, we're not connected to Mother Nature anymore. We're not connected to all of those things that we were connected to as our ancestors were connected to it, or as an evolutionary thing. We're not connected to any of those things, right? Even we're not connected to our food. We buy our food at the grocery store. We're not connected to where it comes from. We're not connected to where our water comes from, the rivers and the sources of water. We just get it in a tap, turn it on, turn it off. We don't think about where it comes from. So there's a lot of disconnection going on in general. All of that causes a sense of ungrounding. That only magnifies for an INFJ, because we are like 10 times worse than anyone else in spending time in our heads. We would rather spend time in the imaginary worlds in our heads than spend time on this real earth. A lot of us hate our physical bodies or hate the fact that we have to live in this physical world because it's such a distraction. We want to spend all of our time in our head, in our imaginary worlds. We hate the fact that we have to come down back to earth and spend time taking care of ourselves, taking a shower, eating food or drinking water, walking around in the world, doing our chores, paying bills. All that stuff just takes away time from spending time in our head. And so we hate it, right? We really despise it. That's the reason, as I said, we spend a lot of our time feeling like we're floating out of our bodies, just floating out in the ether. We feel disconnected to our bodies. And as I've said before as well, in a lot of other videos, it's not a good thing to be ungrounded. It actually is the worst thing for a human being to be ungrounded. It might feel good in the moment because, we space out and we feel like we're doing something great by spending time in our heads, we're, being productive and all of that stuff, but it's not a good thing physically, psychologically, spiritually, mentally. It's better to be as grounded as possible, not only for an INFJ, for beings in general. I spend a lot of my days, because I'm one of the most ungrounded people on this planet, I spend a lot of my days trying to ground myself. I am have very much air qualities to me. Vayu is what they call in Ayurvedic terms. I have a lot of air in me. Also, I'm a Vata personality, which is again a very airy personality. So I spend a lot of time in the ether, a lot of time up there, and less time down here. And I really want to spend more time down here because the more grounded I am, the better I feel in general, the better I'm able to take care of myself, and the more present I am in these moments that are flying away, so fast. So I wanted to share a couple of things, or a few things that I do on a daily basis in order to ground myself. It's so important to have at least one or two of these in your daily routine. Now, you're probably thinking, I have so many things to do already. A lot of these things that I'm going to speak about are really easy to do, and you can kind of multitask with them. So one of the things I always pay attention to is having my feet on the ground. Now, on the ground like this, not like this, not like that, not like this. Having your feet on the ground, and really, really on the ground. So sometimes I'll be sitting on my computer and I'll notice that my toes start curling up, and I start putting my feet into a position where it's very ungrounded. And then I notice myself getting all airy. So I always try as much as possible to put my feet on the ground, just really stable on the ground. And I push down my feet on the ground so that I can feel that grounding, that sense of being on this earth. Obviously, it's better if you're outdoors if you do this, but it doesn't really matter. You can be indoors in your room, in your apartment, and have your feet on the ground, really on the ground, pushed down as much as possible, and you'll feel that sense of grounding. The same thing when you're walking around in the world. I spend a lot of my time walking because as soon as you start walking, you're putting pressure on your feet, pressure, 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 pressure. And that causes a sense of grounding. So, I'll take the stairs as much as possible. I'll try to put as much pressure on my feet as possible because it's a physical sense of grounding. Physically, you're trying to fool your mind into thinking that you're grounding yourself, and that actually works. Our minds are really easy to fool, and that's a good thing. So you can fool yourself into believing or knowing that you are grounded. So that's something that I do on a daily basis. It's really easy to do. You guys can do it while you're working on your computer or while you're sitting watching TV. Just make sure your feet are grounded. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to think about it. Just having your feet on the ground properly stable helps a lot with the grounding. That's one thing. Another thing that I do, as I said, I go for really long walks. As much as possible, I try to avoid, and I can do that because I live in a city where I can walk most places, but I try to avoid transportation like automobiles or scooters or motorbikes as much as possible because I notice, and bicycles as well, not because of the environmental factor of it, which obviously matters, but also because I notice that I'm more grounded when I'm walking through this world rather than zooming past it on some kind of vehicle. So I try as much as possible to walk. Now sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I need to take a taxi, so obviously that's fine. But as much as possible, as I said, I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. It really changes my perspective so much. I feel so much more grounded when I've spent part of my day walking rather than zooming around in my head. So if you can, you don't have to do 10,000 steps, obviously. As much as possible, walk up and down stairs if you can, or walk to the subway station rather than taking the bus, or little things like that. And just adding walking into your day is going to really ground yourself into the day. Another thing that I do that is really important to me in my self-care routine is I make sure that I do an abhyanga, which is a self-massage, every single time I get out of the shower. Now, this is an Ayurvedic term, abhyanga, but this is something that people have been doing for thousands of years in India. And sometimes you would do it for each other. So you massage each other's heads. Head massage is really common in India. We use coconut oil and we'll massage each other's heads, and that really helps you ground yourself into your body and into the earth. Another thing that I do, because I don't live with anyone else, is I do a self-massage. So as soon as I get out of the shower, I dry myself off, and then I use coconut oil and I massage my entire body with that coconut oil. Sometimes it's a little bit humid in Thailand, so sometimes I'll be like, oh my god, really have to do this? But I notice the days that I don't do the abhyanga, that I don't do the self-massage, that I'm extremely ungrounded, and I lose a sense of connection to my body. On the days that I do the abhyanga, I notice that I can feel my body in space. I can feel myself being in my body. And also I feel parts of my body that I normally would not feel, right? I mean, think about it. Do you know what your back feels like? No, unless you actually touch your back right now, you don't know that it actually exists, that you have a back, right? But with the self-massage, because you massage entirely your entire body, your hands, your back, your legs, you actually feel your body in space. You realize, oh, this is my body. This part feels like this, and that part feels like that, and this is what's the texture like, and things like that, right? And so it really helps you come into your body. And it's such an easy thing to do. It doesn't take me that long, maybe 2-3 minutes after a shower. Quickly, I'll just do it because now I'm used to it. And it really helps me ground myself, but also it really helps me come into my body, which is so important for an INFJ and for a human being on this planet. The other things, obviously, that I've mentioned in the past, TRE is one of those exercises. I've done a video on this. So that one's especially crucial for INFJs, I think. Once a week, I go to a TRE session, so I'll really ground myself that way. And guys, it's so important because I instantly notice that I ground myself after a TRE session. I'll notice that my vision is clearer. I mean, normally I don't have perfectly 20/20 vision, but I notice after I do a TRE session, instantaneously, my vision is 20/20, better than 20. It's so clear. I can see everything so clearly that's how I notice how grounded I am. That's one of the ways you can actually notice how ungrounded you are, is how unclear your vision is. If everything's kind of blurry and you're not really focusing on things, it's probably because you're not grounded. You have to ground yourself by either stamping your feet on the ground, or massaging your head, or doing a self-massage, or doing something that brings you back into your body. I just wanted to share a couple of techniques that I've used in the past and I use daily in order to bring myself into my body, because it's so important. I think grounding, in addition to self-love, grounding is one of those things that will really change an INFJ's personality and a human being's personality in general. But an INFJ will become healthier, I believe, if they are more grounded. So I really want you guys to pay attention to some of the techniques I've shared. If you have specific techniques that you guys use, please share them with me. I'm always looking to learn and grow from your knowledge as well. If you guys have any questions, please let me know as well. All of my contact information is in the description below, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.